Everyone, this is Mr. Flights. I've had some questions about standard assignment number 2, and I'll try to quickly explain what you are to do with this exercise. If you recall, you've read about the different types of listeners, the casual listener, which oftentimes we are. We just have music in the background, and that would be a casual listener. You're not fully listening, but you can hear it, and it registers, but you're not really fully connected to the music. The referential listener, which is when you hear a piece of music and it reminds you of something in the past, maybe you've seen before or heard before. The critical listener is somebody that is looking for things wrong with the music. They're finding ways to critique the music. And the perceptive listener, who I believe is somebody that we hope we all can be, is that we listen with a not only a critical ear, but an ear that is looking for the best qualities in the music and enjoying the music, not just for music's sake, but also maybe listening for some of the musical elements within the music that make it good or maybe make it not so good. So let's talk real quick about what you are being asked to do. The piece of music you're going to be listening to is the piece In the Hall of the Mountain King, which I'm sure most of you have probably heard. It's a very, very famous classical piece of music. And within this piece of music, there is primarily just one theme, and that theme sounds like this. You can barely hear it at the beginning. It's very quiet. And that's it. And then later on the piece, you're going to still be hearing the piece. Here it is being played, the theme, here it is played by the violins. Again, it's still pretty quiet, but you can hear it played by the violins using the plucked technique called pizzicato. All right, so there's the theme. The theme is very short, and it keeps occurring over and over in the piece. And what you are to do, now my screen is set up differently than yours because I'm the teacher. So I suppose there's a way for me to get to a student view, but I'm not doing that right now. As you can see, view all grade submissions, and it doesn't look like anybody's done it yet, and that's totally fine, because it'll be good that you get a chance to listen to what I'm saying here. So anyways, what you want to do is turn on the piece of music, and let's see where I can find this. I'll click it on up here. So what you're going to do is listen to that. And what I just heard for the first 12 seconds was the first theme. Now, maybe you would comment, well, as a critical listener, and you could indicate this on your submission, that you're commenting as a critical listener. You might say, why would anybody write music that is so soft? I can barely hear it. There's no point to even listening to this because I cannot hear it. That's what a critical listener would say. Or, I don't like the sound of the bassoon. It annoys me. So you are, from a critical point of view, you're commenting on that first theme at that point. And some of the things that you, throughout this exercise, want to comment on are the dynamics. And you'll notice the dynamics, which are the volume. Does the dynamic volume change gradually or abruptly through this piece? Well, I can tell you it's pretty gradual, and then it starts really increasing later in the piece. Are there any specific places where the abrupt changes happen? Well, you will hear that. What do you think Grieg was trying to achieve? Grieg is the composer of the piece. Timbre. Timbre is the different instrumentations that are being used in the piece. So you'll notice at the beginning, it was a bassoon. Well, later on, you're going to be hearing other instruments taking that theme. So you might want to comment on that. So for example, maybe after you comment as a critical listener, you might comment as a perceptive listener, and you might say, oh, well, the oboe has taken over the theme this time, and it has a nice pure sound, and I like it, or something like that. I mean, you don't have to go into huge detail with this. Also, pitch. At what point is the theme played at a different register? Well, obviously, it's being played at the beginning at a pretty low register played by this bassoon. And then later, when you hear it played by the violins, it'll be at a higher pitch. So you might want to comment on that. And then tempo. At what point does the tempo start getting faster? And I think it's somewhere around maybe a minute and a half where it really starts to pick up. Take a listen. It's about the same tempo here as it was earlier. Here we go. Things are starting to pick up, and you'll notice that the dynamics are much louder. And things are going nuts right now. It's a very cool piece. I really love this piece. But you comment as any one of those four listeners. When I say four listeners, I'm referring to casual, referential, critical, or perceptive. Maybe at one point you comment as a referential listener. Maybe at that point right there where it picked up, you might say something like, oh, this reminds me of that moment in Lord of the Rings where Gandalf was charging down the hill, or something like that. I mean, it could be anything. Or this reminds me of when I was a kid and such happened. I don't know. What other, perceptive, again, perceptive, you would be commenting on primarily these aspects of it. You are listening to the musical elements, the dynamics, the timbre, the pitch, and the tempo. Of course, critical, you might say just something like, oh, this music annoys me. It's getting too loud. I don't like this music because it doesn't have any words to it, or whatever. And and here at the bottom of the page are a couple of examples, which, to be quite honest with you, in some of the submissions I've read in the past, I've read these used. So please don't try not to use these two examples. Try to make up your own, because really you're kind of making up some answers here. It doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about it. And then lastly, list the specific connotations this piece might have for a perceptive listener. No, it's probably a good question. Connotations. Well, I would say something like, maybe even referring to the story of Peer Gynt. Maybe if you are familiar with the story, where Peer Gynt, in a dreamlike fantasy, enters the hall of the Mountain King. And I feel like this music, because of the dynamics and the tempo changes and the timbre changes, really express that. So you don't have to say what I just said, but if you just make some sort of comment, I'm not looking for a paragraph long. Just a few sentences is fine. So hopefully that explains what standard assignment number 2 is all about. Again, because I'm the teacher, I cannot exactly show you how to stop and start and then submit your answers, but your answers will all show up over here. If you have any issues with the screen or something, it's probably because you are maybe using Safari. So try using Chrome or Firefox as your browser. So hopefully this will help, and we'll talk to you soon.